The crack of a gunshot split the morning air as Nathan Reed ducked behind an overturned water trough, cursing his luck and the gambling debt that had brought him to this God-forsaken corner of Montana territory in 1872. Another bullet splintered the wood above his head, sending fragments raining down upon his sweat-drenched face. This wasn't how a man of 30 years should meet his end, shot down by a saloon keeper over $87. Reed, you got till the count of 5 to show yourself. Harlan Dobbs bellowed, his voice cutting through the dusty street of Silver Creek. Nathan checked his Colt revolver, 2 bullets left. Not enough to fight his way out, and certainly not enough to clear his name. He'd been accused of cheating at cards, a hanging offense in these parts, though the real cheat had been Dobbs's dealer with his sleeve full of aces. 1. Nathan wiped the sweat from his brow, leaving a streak of dirt across his tanned face. His life had become a series of narrow escapes since leaving his family's failing ranch in Texas 5 years ago. He drifted north, working cattle drives, breaking horses, and occasionally finding trouble in saloons across the frontier. 2. He'd have to make a run for it. His horse was tethered behind the general store, just 50 yards away. 50 yards of open ground under the sights of Dobbs and his men. 3. The sound of approaching hooves drew Nathan's attention. A wagon rattled down the street, unwittingly providing the distraction he needed. It was now or never. 4. Nathan bolted from behind the trough, keeping low as he sprinted toward the alley beside the general store. Gunshots rang out, bullets kicking up dust at his heels. He dove into the narrow passage between buildings just as Dobbs roared 5, followed by a volley of gunfire. Breathing hard, Nathan pressed his back against the rough wooden wall. The wagon had stopped, voices raised in confusion at the gunplay. He needed to reach his horse before Dobbs and his men circled around. Moving quickly down the alley, Nathan emerged behind the store where his chestnut gelding waited, ears pricked at the commotion. He untied the reins with trembling hands and swung into the saddle. "There he is," a voice shouted from the street. Nathan dug his heels into the horse's flanks, and they bolted away from town, bullets whistling past. He rode hard for nearly an hour, pushing his mount to its limits until he was confident no one followed. Only then did he slow to a walk, giving the exhausted animal a chance to recover. The rugged landscape of northern Montana stretched before him, a vast wilderness of pine-covered mountains and sweeping valleys. Nathan had no plan beyond putting distance between himself and Silver Creek. His supplies were limited to what he carried in his saddlebags: jerky, coffee, ammunition, and less than $5 to his name. As the sun climbed higher, Nathan consulted his worn map. The nearest settlement was Bitter Creek, a small mining town about 2 days' ride north. With luck, he could find work there, preferably something that didn't involve gambling tables. By nightfall, Nathan made camp beside a small stream. As he stared into his meager fire, he contemplated the string of bad decisions that had led him here. At 30, he was no closer to having a place of his own than when he'd left Texas. The dream of saving enough to buy land seemed to recede with each passing year. "You're a fool, Reed," he muttered to himself, sipping the bitter coffee. "A damned fool." Dawn broke with a light drizzle that soon turned into a steady downpour. Nathan rode with his hat pulled low, collar turned up against the rain. By mid-afternoon, the sky cleared, but his clothes remained soaked. When he spotted smoke rising from a chimney in the distance, he changed course, hoping for a chance to dry out. The homestead was modest, a small cabin with a barn and corral nestled in a grove of aspens. A vegetable garden, now overgrown with weeds, suggested the place had once been well tended. Nathan approached cautiously, one hand resting on his revolver. "Hello, the house," he called, stopping at a respectful distance. The door creaked open and an elderly man peered out, a shotgun visible in his hands. "State your business, stranger." "Just looking for a place to dry out, maybe work for a meal," Nathan replied, keeping his hands visible. "Been riding in the rain since morning." The old man studied him for a long moment before lowering his weapon. "You don't look like trouble, but I've been wrong before. Name's Wilson." "Ezekiel Wilson." "Nathan Reed." Wilson gestured toward the barn. "You can put your horse in there, got a stew on the stove. Not much, but it's hot." "Much obliged," Nathan said, relief washing over him. Inside the cabin, Nathan sat at a rough-hewn table while Wilson ladled venison stew into a wooden bowl. The old man moved with difficulty, his right leg stiff and unyielding. "Arrow took me in the leg 2 winters back," Wilson explained, noticing Nathan's glance. "Blackfoot hunting party. Didn't like me trapping their streams." "You out here alone?" Nathan asked between spoonfuls of the hearty stew. Wilson nodded. "Wife passed 5 years ago, son's working the railroads in Wyoming." He settled into a chair across from Nathan. "Where you headed?" "Bitter Creek." "Thought I might find work there." Wilson scoffed. "Mining's played out, town's dying, folks moving on." He studied Nathan with rheumy eyes. "You running from something, son?" Nathan considered lying but decided against it. "Had a disagreement with a saloon keeper in Silver Creek. He thought I was cheating at cards." "Were you?" "No," Nathan said firmly. "But his dealer was." Wilson seemed to accept this. "Well, you're welcome to dry out here. Got a wagon heading to Fort Benton tomorrow, cattle auction. Could use a hand loading up." "You're taking cattle to auction?" Nathan glanced out the window. He hadn't seen any cattle on the property. "Not my cattle," Wilson said with a wheezing laugh. "Got something else to sell." The next morning, Nathan helped Wilson hitch a team to his wagon. The old man disappeared into the barn and emerged leading a young woman by a rope tied around her wrists. Nathan froze, shocked by the sight. The woman appeared to be in her early 20s, with tangled dark hair and dirt-streaked skin. She wore a tattered dress that might once have been blue, and her feet were bare despite the morning chill. Her eyes, however, caught Nathan's attention, fierce and defiant despite her circumstances. "What in God's name?" Nathan blurted out. "Found her 3 days ago trying to steal my chickens," Wilson explained casually. "She's wild as they come. Don't speak no English I can make out. Might be one of them half-breeds from up north, or maybe Crow. Figure I can get a good price for her at Fort Benton, always men looking for women, even wild ones." Nathan's stomach turned. The buying and selling of people, even Indians or half-breeds, as Wilson called them, wasn't uncommon in the territories, despite being illegal. Some were sold as indentured servants, others for more nefarious purposes. "That's not right," Nathan said quietly. Wilson shrugged. "Way of the frontier, son. She ain't white and she ain't got nobody looking for her. Help me get her in the wagon." Nathan hesitated, his conscience warring with his need for Wilson's goodwill. The woman stared at him, her dark eyes challenging. "I can't be part of this," Nathan finally said. Wilson's expression hardened. "Then I reckon it's time for you to move on. Breakfast or no breakfast." Nathan knew he should ride away. Getting involved would only bring more trouble, and he had enough of that already. But something about the woman's defiant gaze held him. "I'll buy her from you," he heard himself say. Wilson looked surprised, then amused. "You, with what money?" Nathan reached into his pocket and pulled out his remaining coins. "I've got $4.73. Wilson laughed outright. "She's worth 20 at least, even wild as she is." "It's all I have," Nathan insisted. Wilson studied him, then glanced at the sky. "Storm's coming in." Fort Benton's a 2-day journey in good weather. He seemed to calculate his odds. Tell you what, I'll take $1 for her. Save me the trouble of the journey and you get yourself a woman, even if you have to break her first. He grinned, revealing tobacco-stained teeth. Nathan wanted to punch the old man but restrained himself. $1 it is, he said, fishing a silver dollar from his meager funds. Wilson took the coin, bit it, then pocketed it. She's yours. Don't come crying to me when she sticks a knife in your ribs. He untied the rope from the wagon and handed it to Nathan. Good luck. You'll need it. Nathan took the rope reluctantly, feeling the woman's eyes boring into him. As Wilson hobbled back to his cabin, Nathan slowly untied the bindings around her wrists. I'm not going to hurt you, he said gently. You're free to go if you want. The woman rubbed her chafed wrists, watching him warily. She glanced toward the surrounding forest, then back at Nathan. Go on, he encouraged. You're not my property, despite what that old man thinks. Instead of fleeing, she studied him with an intensity that made him uncomfortable. Then, to his surprise, she spoke. Why? Her voice was soft but clear, the single word accented but unmistakably English. You speak English, Nathan said, startled. Some. She continued to watch him. Why buy? Nathan struggled to articulate his motivations. Because people aren't for sale, because it wasn't right. She nodded slowly, as if processing his words. Where you go? Bitter Creek, though I hear it's not much of a town anymore. Nathan wasn't sure why he was telling her his plans. You should get back to your people. A shadow crossed her face. No people. Not anymore. The simple statement held volumes of pain. Nathan had heard stories of Indian villages wiped out by disease, starvation, or military action. Survivors often wandered alone, caught between worlds. I'm sorry, he said inadequately. What's your name? She hesitated, then said Bidziel. When Nathan struggled with the pronunciation, she added, means strong in Navajo, you say. Bella. Bella, Nathan repeated. I'm Nathan Reed. The sky darkened as they talked, and thunder rumbled in the distance. The approaching storm would hit soon. We should find shelter, Nathan said, looking at the blackening clouds. You're welcome to ride with me if you want, just until the storm passes. Bella looked at the sky, then at the forest, weighing her options. Finally, she nodded. I ride. Nathan helped her onto his horse, then mounted behind her, acutely aware of maintaining a respectful distance. They rode away from Wilson's homestead as the first heavy raindrops began to fall. The storm hit with unexpected ferocity, forcing them to take refuge in an abandoned trapper's cabin Nathan spotted among the trees. The tiny one-room structure leaked in several places, but it was better than being exposed to the elements. Nathan built a small fire in the stone hearth while Bella stood by the door, watching him work. He was acutely aware of how the situation might appear: a white man alone in a cabin with a young Indian woman he'd just purchased. The thought made him uncomfortable. I meant what I said, he told her as he coaxed the fire to life. You're free to go whenever you want. I just couldn't leave you with Wilson. Bella moved closer to the fire, extending her hands toward the warmth. Wilson bad man. Take me when I sleep. Say he sell me to men who want. She stopped, unable or unwilling to finish the thought. You won't have to worry about that anymore, Nathan assured her. He rummaged in his saddlebags and produced jerky and hardtack. It's not much, but you're welcome to share. She accepted the food cautiously, then devoured it with the intensity of someone who hadn't eaten properly in days. Nathan realized that Wilson probably hadn't fed her well. As the storm raged outside, Nathan learned more about Bella. She wasn't Navajo by birth. Her mother had been Crow and her father a French-Canadian trapper. She'd been raised in a small Crow camp until a smallpox epidemic 2 years earlier killed most of her people, including her mother. She'd been living alone in the wilderness since then, occasionally trading with friendly settlers but mostly avoiding human contact. "How did you learn English?" Nathan asked. "Father teach some, then missionary at Fort." She spoke carefully, choosing her words. "I learn more from traders." Night fell, and the storm showed no signs of abating. The cabin had a single narrow cot, which Nathan insisted Bella take while he made do with his bedroll on the floor near the fire. As he lay listening to the rain hammer the roof, Nathan wondered what he'd gotten himself into. He had no plan beyond reaching Bitter Creek, and now he had a companion who would likely attract unwanted attention. Sleep eluded him as he pondered his next move. Dawn was still hours away when Bella's voice cut through the darkness. "Nathan," she whispered. "Someone outside." He sat up instantly, reaching for his revolver. "Are you sure?" She nodded, her eyes reflecting the dying firelight. "Horses. More than one." Nathan moved to the cabin's single window, carefully peering out into the stormy night. Through the rain, he could make out the silhouettes of 3 mounted men approaching the cabin. His heart sank as he recognized Harlan Dobbs's bulky frame. "It's the men from Silver Creek," he said quietly. "They must have tracked me." Bella slipped from the cot, moving silently to stand beside him. "They want kill you. That's the general idea," Nathan confirmed grimly. "They think I cheated them. Did you?" "No, but that hardly matters now." Nathan checked his revolver, still only 2 bullets. "Against 3 armed men, the odds weren't good." "Back door?" Bella asked. "There isn't one." The cabin was a simple rectangle with a single entrance. They were trapped. Bella moved to the fireplace and began rummaging through the ashes with a stick. To Nathan's surprise, she pulled out a rusted skinning knife that had been hidden among the stones. "Trappers always have knife," she explained, testing the edge with her thumb. "Not sharp, but better than nothing." Nathan was touched by her willingness to stand with him against armed men she didn't know. "This isn't your fight, Bella. When they come in, stay hidden. This is between me and them." She shook her head firmly. "You help me, I help you." Before Nathan could argue further, a voice called from outside. "Reed, we know you're in there. Come on out and face what's coming to you." Nathan moved to the door. "What do you want, Dobbs?" "You know damn well what I want. You cheated me out of $87 and shot my barkeep." "Your dealer was cheating, not me. And your barkeep drew on me first. I just winged him." A harsh laugh answered him. "Tell it to the devil. You've got 1 minute to come out, or we're coming in shooting." Nathan turned to Bella. "Is there anything in here we can use to barricade the door?" She shook her head, then suddenly tilted it, listening. "Wait, they spread out." She moved to the window. "One goes behind cabin." Nathan joined her at the window. Sure enough, one rider had disappeared from view. They were planning to surround the cabin. "Reed," Dobbs called again. "Time's up." The crack of a rifle shot punctuated his words, the bullet splintering the wooden door. Nathan pulled Bella away from the window just as another shot shattered the glass. "Get down," he ordered, pushing her toward the stone hearth, the only solid cover in the cabin. The door burst open, and Dobbs filled the frame, revolver in hand. Nathan fired once, forcing the saloon keeper to dive to the side. His second bullet caught the man following Dobbs in the shoulder, sending him stumbling backward with a howl of pain. Now out of ammunition, Nathan braced for the inevitable. Dobbs recovered quickly, aiming his weapon at Nathan's chest. "Should have played fair, Reed," he snarled. A sudden movement caught both men's attention as Bella launched herself from beside the hearth, driving the rusted skinning knife into Dobbs's thigh. The big man roared in pain, his shot going wild as he staggered. Nathan seized the opportunity, tackling Dobbs and wrestling for the revolver. They crashed to the floor, Dobbs's superior weight nearly pinning Nathan. The saloon keeper slammed Nathan's hand against the rough planks, trying to dislodge his grip on the revolver. Outside, the third man shouted, preparing to enter. With a surge of desperate strength, Nathan twisted the gun toward Dobbs and pulled the trigger. The shot was deafening in the confined space. Dobbs's eyes widened in shock, then glazed over as he slumped onto Nathan. Panting, Nathan shoved the dead weight aside and scrambled to his feet just as the third man appeared in the doorway. He raised Dobbs's revolver, but before he could fire, the man dropped to his knees, an arrow protruding from his back. Nathan froze in shock. From the darkness behind the fallen man emerged three mounted figures, Indians wearing the distinctive dress of Crow warriors. Bella stepped forward, speaking rapidly in a language Nathan didn't understand. One of the warriors, his face painted with red and black stripes, dismounted and approached. He responded to Bella, his voice deep and measured. "What's happening?" Nathan asked, still holding Dobbs's revolver. Bella turned to him. "These are my mother's people, small band that survived sickness. They search for survivors." She smiled slightly. "They follow us from Wilson's place. Watch to see if you good man or bad man." "And what did they decide?" Nathan asked nervously. "They say you good man, you free me when you could keep me." She spoke again to the warrior, who nodded solemnly at Nathan. "He is Two Bears," Bella translated, "war chief of what remains of our band. He says we should come with them, safer than traveling alone." Nathan looked at the bodies of Dobbs and his men, then at the Crow warriors waiting patiently in the rain. His original plan to reach Bitter Creek seemed insignificant now. Where are they going? North, to join with northern Crow bands near Yellowstone, safer there from white soldiers. She studied his face. "You can come. They accept you because you help me." Nathan considered his options. He had no real ties, no destination that couldn't change. The law might come looking for him over Dobbs's death, though it had been self-defense. Going with the Crow would mean leaving behind the white man's world, at least for a time. He looked at Bella, struck by her strength and determination. Something stirred within him, not just attraction, though she was beautiful despite her ragged appearance, but admiration for her resilience. "I'll come," he decided, "at least for a while." Bella's smile was like the sun breaking through storm clouds. She translated for Two Bears, who nodded approval. Within minutes, they had gathered Nathan's few possessions and mounted up Nathan on his gelding, Bella riding double with him. As they rode away from the cabin, leaving the bodies for whoever might find them, the storm finally began to subside. They traveled north for 3 days, avoiding settlements and military patrols. The small band of Crow, just 7 warriors, plus 4 women and 3 children who had joined them the previous day, moved with practiced efficiency through the rugged terrain. Nathan was impressed by their knowledge of the land and their ability to find game when his own eyes saw nothing. Bella rode with Nathan during the day and helped translate the few times communication was necessary. At night, she stayed with the Crow women, maintaining a proper distance that Nathan respected. Still, he found his eyes seeking her out, watching as she helped prepare meals or tended to the children. Her transformation away from Wilson's captivity was remarkable. She stood taller, spoke more confidently, and occasionally even laughed with the other women. On the 4th night, as they camped in a sheltered valley, Two Bears approached Nathan as he tended his horse. The war chief's English was limited but better than Nathan had realized. "You fight good," Two Bears said, gesturing to the healing cut on Nathan's face from his struggle with Dobbs. "Good heart too, save Bidziel." "She saved me too," Nathan replied honestly. Two Bears nodded. "Woman strong like her name, needs strong man." He studied Nathan thoughtfully. You stay with Crow, Nathan hesitated. I don't know, I'm not sure I'd fit in permanently. Think about, Two Bears advised. Better than running always. He tapped his chest. Man needs home, needs people. Later that evening, as Nathan sat alone by the fire, Bella joined him, offering a portion of the venison stew the women had prepared. You quiet today, she observed as he accepted the food. Just thinking, Nathan admitted. Two Bears asked if I planned to stay with your people. And her dark eyes reflected the firelight, unreadable. I don't know. I've been drifting so long, I'm not sure I remember how to stay in one place. He stirred the stew with his spoon. What about you? Are you happy to be back with your mother's people? Bella looked toward the other crow who were settling in for the night. They are family, but I am different now. Not fully crow, not white, always between. Her words resonated with Nathan. He too had spent years feeling caught between worlds, no longer the Texas rancher's son, but never fully comfortable in the rough frontier towns where he'd tried to make his way. What will you do when we reach the northern bands? He asked. She considered this. Find my place. Learn to be strong alone if needed. She glanced at him. What will you do if not stay? Nathan had been pondering this question himself. Maybe head to California. I hear there's still land available there for those willing to work hard. Is good dream, Bella said softly. Land of your own. They sat in companionable silence for a while, watching the stars appear overhead. Nathan found himself wanting to reach for her hand but resisted the impulse. Despite the growing connection between them, he was acutely aware of the cultural differences and his temporary status with the band. Thank you, Bella said suddenly. For what? For $1, she replied with the hint of a smile. Best dollar ever spent, I think. Nathan laughed, surprised by her humor. I think you're right about that. The journey continued northward, skirting the eastern edge of the mountains. Game was plentiful, and the weather held fair, making for relatively easy travel. Nathan found himself falling into the rhythms of crow life, rising with the sun, helping with hunting, learning bits of their language from Bella and the others. One afternoon, as they paused to rest the horses beside a clear mountain stream, Bella approached Nathan with an unusual request. Teach me to shoot, she said, nodding toward the revolver he'd taken from Dobbs. Nathan raised his eyebrows. Why do you want to learn? World-changing, she replied simply. Crow women learn to cook, so make home. Good skills, but not enough now. Need to protect self, help hunt when men away. Her pragmatism impressed Nathan. All right, he agreed, but ammunition is limited. We'll have to make each shot count. He found a suitable clearing away from the main camp and set up makeshift targets, pine cones placed on fallen logs at varying distances. Bella watched intently as he demonstrated proper grip, stance, and aiming. Remember, the gun will kick back when you fire, he warned, handing her the revolver. Be ready for it. Bella's first shot went wild, the recoil stronger than she'd anticipated, but she was a quick learner, adjusting her stance and grip. By her fifth attempt, she was hitting the targets consistently. You're a natural, Nathan said, genuinely impressed. Good teacher, she countered with a small smile. As Nathan guided her through reloading, their hands touched briefly. The contact sent an unexpected warmth through him, and he found himself lingering a moment longer than necessary. When he looked up, Bella's eyes met his, and he saw his own feelings reflected, their uncertainty mixed with undeniable attraction. The moment was broken by a shout from the camp. Two Bears was calling them back. Scouts had reported riders approaching from the east. Soldiers. Nathan asked as they hurried back to the others. Bella conferred briefly with Two Bears. Not soldiers. Hunters maybe, or trappers. 6 men. The crow quickly broke camp, disappearing into the forest with practiced efficiency. Nathan and Bella followed, leading their horses until they reached a vantage point overlooking the valley. From there, they could see the approaching riders, rough-looking men with rifles and packhorses. Fur trappers, Nathan concluded, noting their equipment. Probably heading into the mountains for beaver. Two bears signaled for the band to continue moving. Encounters with trappers could be unpredictable. Some were friendly to Indians, others hostile. Better to avoid contact entirely. They traveled until dusk, making camp in a sheltered canyon well off any established trails. As they settled in for the night, Nathan noticed Bella seemed troubled. "What's wrong?" he asked as they sat by the small, carefully shielded fire. "Those men," she said quietly. "One looked like man who attacked my mother's camp, man with scar." She drew a line from her temple to her jaw. "He lead others who kill many of my people before sickness came." Nathan frowned. "Are you sure?" "Not certain." Was dark time, confused but face familiar. She hugged her knees to her chest. "Bad dreams will come tonight." Without thinking, Nathan placed his hand over hers. "I'm sorry for what happened to your people. No one should have to endure such loss." Bella turned her hand to clasp his, the simple gesture conveying gratitude more effectively than words. They sat together in silence as night deepened around them, each finding comfort in the other's presence. The next morning, two bears announced they would change direction, heading northwest instead of directly north. The hunter's presence had made him cautious. Nathan suspected there was more to the decision. Perhaps Bella had shared her concerns about the scarred man. As they traveled through increasingly mountainous terrain, Nathan found himself riding beside two bears more often, with Bella translating their conversations. The war chief was curious about Nathan's life before meeting Bella, and Nathan shared stories of Texas, cattle drives, and his years of drifting. In turn, two bears spoke of the Crows' struggles as white settlement expanded and traditional hunting grounds were lost. "My father see this coming," two bears said through Bella. "He say white man like flood cannot stop, can only rise above. Some Crow learn white man ways to survive. Others fight and die. Hard to know right path." "I don't know the right path either," Nathan admitted. "But I respect how your people have adapted while keeping your traditions." Two bears nodded appreciatively. "You have good eyes, see truth." He looked meaningfully at Bella, then back to Nathan. "See truth in people too." That evening, as they made camp beside a small lake, two bears announced they would rest for 2 days. The women had spotted berries ripening on the mountainside, and the men had found signs of elk nearby. It was a good place to replenish their supplies before the final push to join the northern bands. The brief respite from travel gave Nathan time to reflect on the journey and his growing feelings for Bella. Over the past week, they had gradually drawn closer, their conversations longer, their silences more comfortable. He found himself watching her as she worked with the other women, admiring her grace and determination. Bella, too, seemed to seek his company more often. That afternoon, she invited him to join her gathering berries on the hillside above camp. As they worked side by side, filling small woven baskets, Nathan sensed she had something to say. "You still think of California?" she asked finally, her fingers stained purple with berry juice. Nathan paused, realizing he hadn't thought about his vague California plans for days. "Not really," he admitted. "What about you? Are you looking forward to reaching the northern bands?" Bella focused intently on selecting berries. "They will be strangers to me." "Some family connections, but not same as my mother's band." She glanced at him. "Two bears say you welcome to stay with Crow, learn our ways." Nathan was surprised. "He said that about me," she nodded. "He say you have good heart, respect our ways, could be good Crow." A faint blush colored her cheeks. Could be good husband too. The implication was clear and Nathan's heart raced. Bella, are you saying what I think you're saying? She met his eyes directly, courage overcoming shyness. I have feelings for you, Nathan Reed, not because you save me. Because you see me not wild girl, not just Indian woman. You see Bella. Nathan set down his basket and took her hands in his, berry juice and all. I see the strongest, most remarkable woman I've ever known. And I've been falling in love with you since the moment you drove that rusty knife into Dobbs's leg to save my life. Her laugh was spontaneous and beautiful, not very romantic memory. I disagree, Nathan said, smiling. It was the most romantic knife attack I've ever experienced. Then slowly, giving her time to pull away if she wished, he leaned forward and kissed her. Her lips were sweet with berry juice, and she responded with a tenderness that made his heart soar. When they finally parted, Bella's eyes were bright with emotion. So you stay with Crow? Nathan touched her cheek gently. I'll stay with you. Whether that's with the Crow or somewhere else, we'll figure it out together. Their return to camp, hand in hand with half-filled berry baskets, drew knowing smiles from the Crow women. Two Bears nodded approvingly when he saw them, as if a plan had come to fruition exactly as he'd expected. That night, according to Crow custom, Nathan formally asked Two Bears for permission to marry Bella. The war chief considered the request with appropriate seriousness, though the twinkle in his eye suggested he'd anticipated this development. Crow man must prove worth to woman's family, Two Bears explained. Show he can hunt, fight, provide. I'm willing to prove myself however necessary, Nathan assured him. Two Bears nodded. Tomorrow you hunt elk, bring meat for all, then we talk more. Dawn found Nathan preparing for the hunt, checking his borrowed bow and arrows. He'd used a bow occasionally during his years on the frontier, but was far from skilled. Still, ammunition for his revolver was too precious to waste on hunting, and the Crow preferred the silence of archery when stalking elk. Bella approached as he finished his preparations. Two Bears send 2 hunters with you. Not test, just help. He want you succeed. I appreciate that, Nathan said, relieved. She touched the bow. My father was great hunter, said best hunter thinks like animal, feels its spirit. She pressed something into his hand, a small leather pouch on a cord. For luck, my mother make when I small, keep safe. Nathan slipped the cord around his neck, touched by her gift. I'll bring back the biggest elk in these mountains just for you. The hunt was challenging but successful. With the guidance of the 2 Crow hunters, young men named Running Fox and Black Wolf, Nathan tracked a small herd of elk to a mountain meadow. His arrow found its mark in a young bull, and the 3 men worked together to dress the animal and transport the meat back to camp. The return of the hunters was celebrated with a feast that evening. Nathan sat beside Bella, accepting congratulations from the band members. Two Bears formally announced his approval of their union, setting a wedding date for the following evening, according to Crow tradition. As the celebration continued around them, Bella leaned close to Nathan. You sure about this? Becoming husband to Crow woman not easy path. I've never been more certain of anything, Nathan replied honestly. The past few years, I've been searching for something without knowing what it was. Now I know it was you, it was this feeling of belonging. She smiled, eyes shining in the firelight. $1 well spent. Best investment of my life, he agreed, kissing her lightly. The wedding ceremony took place as planned, combining Crow traditions with elements that acknowledged Nathan's background. Bella wore a dress the women had helped her prepare, decorated with beadwork and porcupine quills. Nathan wore new buckskin leggings and a shirt gifted to him by Two Bears, along with his own worn but cleaned cowboy hat. The ceremony was simple, but meaningful. Two bears spoke of the union of two streams into one river, stronger together than apart. Nathan and Bella exchanged promises in both English and Crow, pledging to stand together through whatever challenges came. The band celebrated with music, dancing, and a feast that lasted well into the night. Later, in the small lodge that had been prepared for them, Nathan held Bella close, still amazed by the turn his life had taken. "What are you thinking?" she asked, noticing his pensive expression. "I'm thinking about how close I came to riding past Wilson's cabin that day," he admitted. "One different choice and I never would have met you." "Great Spirit had planned," Bella said with conviction. "Brought you to me to you." "Then I'm grateful to the Great Spirit," Nathan said, kissing her tenderly, "and to Wilson's greed and even to Dobbs for running me out of Silver Creek." Bella laughed softly. "Strange things to be thankful for." "Life is strange," Nathan agreed. "A week ago I was a drifter with no future. Now I'm a married man with a beautiful wife and a new family." "And new responsibilities," she reminded him gently. "Two bears trust you now. You help protect our people." "I will," Nathan promised. "Whatever comes, we'll face it together." The band remained at the lakeside camp for another day before continuing their journey. As they traveled, Nathan noticed a subtle change in how the Crow warriors treated him, no longer as an outsider to be tolerated, but as one of their own. He began learning their language more earnestly, with Bella as his patient teacher. 10 days later, they reached the larger Crow encampment near the Yellowstone River. The arrival of Two Bears' band was greeted with both joy and sorrow. Joy at reuniting with kin, sorrow for the many faces missing due to disease and conflict. Nathan felt the weight of curious stares as he rode into camp beside Bella. White men living among the Crow weren't unheard of, but they were uncommon enough to draw attention. Bella squeezed his hand reassuringly. "They will know you by your actions," she said quietly, "just as I did." The first weeks with the Northern Band were a period of adjustment for both Nathan and Bella. She reconnected with distant relatives, while he worked to find his place in the community. His skills with horses proved valuable, as did his knowledge of white settlers' ways and territories. As autumn approached, bringing cooler temperatures and changing leaves, Nathan and Bella established their own lodge on the edge of the camp. Though simple by white standards, it was home, the first real home Nathan had known in years. One crisp morning, as they sat together watching the sunrise, Bella shared news that changed everything. "I carry your child," she said, her hand resting on her still flat stomach. "Will be born in spring." Nathan's heart swelled with joy and trepidation. "A child," he whispered, placing his hand over hers. "Our child." The prospect of fatherhood brought new purpose to Nathan's days. He worked harder, learning from the Crow hunters and warriors, determined to provide for his growing family. Bella, too, prepared for the baby's arrival, sewing tiny moccasins and gathering traditional medicines with the older women. Winter descended on the mountains with icy determination. Game became scarcer, and the band moved to their winter camp in a sheltered valley. The cold months were difficult, but brought the community closer together. Evenings were spent in lodges, sharing stories and teaching the children. Nathan contributed tales from his travels, while learning the rich oral history of the Crow people from the elders. Bella's pregnancy progressed well, her belly growing round beneath her winter clothing. Nathan marveled at the changes in her body and the deepening of their connection as they prepared to become parents. It was during the coldest part of winter, when snow lay deep across the valley, that trouble found them. A hunting party returned to camp with grave news: white soldiers had been seen in the territory, accompanied by Indian scouts. They appeared to be searching for someone. Two bears called a council that evening, inviting Nathan to join the circle of men around the central fire in his lodge. Soldiers asked questions at trading post, Two Bears reported. Show paper with drawing. Look like you, Nathan Reed. Nathan's stomach knotted. A wanted poster. For what? One of the hunters who'd seen the soldiers spoke in Crow, with Two Bears translating. Murder of man named Dobbs. Reward offered. Bella, listening from the edge of the lodge, moved to Nathan's side. Was self-defense. We know truth. Truth matters little to white man's law, Two Bears said gravely. They want someone to hang. Nathan considered his options. He could flee deeper into the mountains, but that would mean leaving Bella behind, heavy with child. He could stay and risk bringing soldiers to the Crow camp, endangering everyone who had taken him in. I should go, he said finally. Draw them away from here. Bella gripped his arm. No, winter too dangerous to travel alone, and I need you here. Her voice dropped to a whisper. Our child needs father. Two Bears studied them both, then spoke decisively. You stay. We send word you died in mountains. Show grave if needed. The council debated the plan, eventually agreeing. A false grave would be created at a distance from the camp, complete with personal items Nathan could spare. If soldiers came looking, they would be shown evidence of his death and, hopefully, end their search. That night, in the privacy of their lodge, Bella held Nathan close. I was afraid you would leave, she admitted. Never, he promised. My place is with you now, with our family. She placed his hand on her belly where their child stirred. Feel, already strong like father. And mother, Nathan added, kissing her forehead. The strongest woman I know. 2 weeks later, the band's scouts reported soldiers approaching the winter camp. The planned deception was put into motion. Nathan remained hidden while Two Bears and several warriors met the military party, a lieutenant, 10 soldiers, and 3 Shoshone scouts. Through a carefully positioned lookout, Nathan watched as Two Bears spoke with the lieutenant through a translator. The war chief's performance was masterful, expressing regret that the man they sought had indeed stayed with the Crow briefly, but had died attempting a winter crossing of the mountains. Two Bears offered to show them the grave site. The lieutenant, eager to complete his mission and return to the fort before the next snowstorm, accepted the evidence with minimal questioning. By nightfall, the soldiers had departed, carrying Nathan's old hat and journal as proof of his demise. You are now ghost to white world, Two Bears told him afterward with a rare smile. Good place to be. The remainder of winter passed in relative peace. Bella grew heavier with child, her discomfort increasing as the baby grew. Nathan rarely left her side, worried about the coming birth in such primitive conditions. His concern was tempered by the knowledge that Crow women had been birthing babies successfully for generations, with skilled midwives to assist. Spring arrived with melting snow and new growth. Birds returned to the valley, and the first wildflowers pushed through the softening earth. It was during this season of renewal that Bella's labor began. Nathan paced outside their lodge as the midwives attended her. Her cries tore at his heart, but he was forbidden to enter until the birth was complete. Hours passed, the sun crossing the sky and beginning its descent before he heard the unmistakable cry of a newborn. Shortly after, one of the older women emerged from the lodge, her weathered face wreathed in smiles. Come, she said in halting English. See son. Inside, Bella reclined on their bed of furs, exhausted but radiant. In her arms lay a tiny bundle with a shock of dark hair. Nathan knelt beside them, overcome with emotion. He is beautiful, he whispered, gently touching his son's cheek. Like his mother. He has father's chin, Bella countered with a tired smile, and spirit, fought hard to come into world. They named him Thomas, after Nathan's father, with a Crow name as well Braveheart, chosen by two bears to honor the child's mixed heritage. The birth of their son marked a new chapter in Nathan and Bella's life together. As spring turned to summer, they adjusted to parenthood with the support of the Crow community. Thomas thrived, growing strong on his mother's milk and the love that surrounded him. During this time, Nathan often reflected on the extraordinary journey that had brought him to this point. From a Texas ranch to Montana territory, from a drifter with no purpose to a husband and father with deep roots in a community. One evening, as they sat outside their lodge watching the sunset, Thomas sleeping peacefully in Bella's arms, Nathan shared these thoughts with her. "If someone had told me a year ago that I'd be living with the Crow, married with a son, I'd have thought they were crazy," he said, shaking his head in wonder. Bella smiled. "Life has strange path, cannot see around next bend in river." "I'm glad I couldn't see," Nathan admitted. "I might have been too afraid to follow where it led." He took her free hand in his. "Best dollar I ever spent." "You say that often," she teased, "because it's true." He kissed her gently. "Though you're worth far more than Wilson ever knew." As Thomas grew from infant to toddler, Nathan and Bella faced the challenges of their unique situation. They taught their son both English and Crow, wanting him to navigate both worlds that formed his heritage. Nathan shared stories of Texas and his travels, while Bella taught Thomas the ways of her people: respect for nature, community values, and ancient traditions. The years that followed brought changes to the Crow and to the Montana territory. More white settlers arrived, pushing the boundaries of Indian lands. Treaties were made and broken. The great buffalo herds, once the lifeblood of plains tribes, dwindled under the pressure of commercial hunting. Through these changing times, Nathan and Bella's relationship deepened. They welcomed a daughter, Sarah, when Thomas was 3, and another son, William, 2 years later. Their family grew strong despite the pressures around them. Nathan never returned to white society, though occasionally he would visit trading posts for supplies, his identity secure in his new life. The charges against him were eventually forgotten as Harlan Dobbs faded from memory. Just another violent death in a violent territory. 10 years after Nathan had purchased Bella for $1, they stood together on a hillside overlooking the valley where they had made their home. Thomas, now a lanky 9-year-old with his father's height and his mother's dark eyes, played with his siblings nearby, their laughter carrying on the summer breeze. "No regrets?" Nathan asked, his arm around Bella's waist. She leaned against him, still as beautiful to him as the day they'd met, though her face now showed the subtle lines of motherhood and wisdom. "None," she said firmly. "This is good life. Hard sometimes, but good." Nathan nodded, surveying the land that had become more home to him than any place he'd known. "When I left Texas, I was running away. I never thought I'd find something to run toward. And now," Bella asked, looking up at him, "now I know exactly where I belong." He kissed her, still marveling at how a desperate gamble in a dusty Montana town had led him to this moment, to this woman who had transformed his life. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the valley, Nathan and Bella called their children to head back to camp. Walking hand in hand, they descended the hillside together, a family forged from the most unlikely beginning: a wild girl, a drifting cowboy, and a silver dollar that had purchased not ownership, but partnership, not servitude, but love. In the years that followed, Nathan and Bella would face more challenges: the confinement of the Crow to reservations, the pressure on their children to abandon traditional ways, the continuing encroachment of white civilization. But they would face these trials together, their bond strengthened by every obstacle overcome, every joy shared, Every year passed in mutual respect and deepening love. And sometimes, on quiet evenings when the children were asleep, Nathan would take out that silver dollar, the same one he'd paid to Wilson all those years ago, which Bella had found in the old man's cabin when they'd stopped there briefly during their journey north. He would turn it over in his fingers, marveling at how the smallest transactions could yield the greatest treasures, how one desperate choice could lead to a lifetime of happiness. "Best investment any man ever made," he would say, and Bella would smile, knowing that what they had found together was indeed beyond price.